From real-world inspiration to the industrial metaverse to total immersion. Innovate at the speed of software within the industrial metaverse. Transform the everyday with Siemens.
Hi, I'm Dorina, co-founder of OpenPhone. My dad is a business owner, and growing up, I'll never forget his old ringtone. He made it as loud as it could go because he could not afford to miss a single customer call. That stuck with me. When we started OpenPhone, our mission was to help businesses not just stay in touch, but make every customer feel valued, no matter when they might call. OpenPhone gives your team business phone numbers to call and text customers, all through an app on your phone or computer. Your calls, messages, and contacts live in one workspace, so your team can stay fully aligned and reply faster. And with our AI agent answering 24/7, you'll really never miss a customer. Over 60,000 businesses use OpenPhone. Try it now and get 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/business. And we can port your existing numbers over for free. OpenPhone. No missed calls, no missed customers.
Avoiding your unfinished home projects because you're not sure where to start? Thumbtack knows home so you don't have to. Don't know the difference between matte paint finish and satin? Or what that clunking sound from your dryer is? With Thumbtack, you don't have to be a home pro. You just have to hire one. You can hire top-rated pros, see price estimates, and read reviews all on the app. Download today.
Banking with Capital One helps you keep more money in your wallet with no fees or minimums on checking accounts and no overdraft fees. Just ask the Capital One bank guy. It's pretty much all he talks about, in a good way. He'd also tell you that this podcast is his favorite podcast, too. Ah, really? Thanks, Capital One bank guy. What's in your wallet? Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com/bank. Capital One N.A. member FDIC.
This is the Daily Tech News for August 8th, 2025. You know what we do. We tell you what you need to know, follow up on context, and try to help each other understand all this crazy stuff.
Well, today we explain why the President of the United States is calling for Intel CEO to resign.
Yeah, we touched on it yesterday, but there's a whole lot more that we figured out. I'm Tom Merritt.
I'm Winter Dow.
Let's start with what you need to know with the big story. All right. When this is going to be long, so feel free to pepper me with questions and clarifications as we go.
Gotcha.
After the president of the United States called for his resignation Thursday, Intel CEO Lip-Bu Tan told employees, and here's a quote from the message, "There's been a lot of misinformation circulating about my past roles. I wanted to be absolutely clear. I have always operated within the highest legal and ethical standards." He also said, "We are engaging with the administration to address the matters that have been raised and ensure they have the facts." Now, as we mentioned yesterday, earlier in the week, U.S. Senator Tom Cotton had sent a letter to Intel's board expressing concern about Tan and asking whether he had divested himself of previous investments in China. Now, here are the two big areas of concern. All right, let's dig in. You ready?
Yeah.
In the 1980s, Tan helped found Walden International, which invested in more than 600 companies, and 100 of those were in China. A lot of those were semiconductor companies, including SMIC. SMIC has been in the news for being the standard bearer for domestic chip developments now that China has been cut off by the United States from the rest of the world's chip developments. And Tan served as a board member on SMIC until 2018. That was 2 years before SMIC was added to the U.S. entity list, restricting exports to it. So he wasn't on the board of SMIC when it got restricted.
Okay.
All right?
Okay.
Tan agreed to divest his Walden holdings when he took over as Intel CEO, but he is still chairman of its board.
Okay. Sorry. So can we start? So just to be clear, usually when someone like in Lip-Bu Tan's position needs to divest, it's purely from a financial stake and not necessarily from a participatory, if that's the right word for it.
That seems to be the case, and probably why Senator Cotton is like, I have questions.
Okay.
Also, Walden has had questions before. A couple of years ago, 2023, the House Select Committee on the Chinese Communist Party, the U.S. House Select Committee on the Chinese Communist Party, sent Walden a letter expressing concerns about Walden's investments in China. And Walden has scaled back its Chinese investments. Walden doesn't have a lot of investments. Supposedly, Tan has divested himself, but the reporting is saying we can't confirm that, right?
Okay.
He said he has, but we can't confirm it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. That brings us to the second concern, and probably the bigger one. Tan joined the board of a chip design company called Cadence Designs in 2004 and became CEO of that company in 2008. He was CEO of Cadence from 2008 until 2021. He stepped down as chairman of the board of Cadence in 2023. So there was some overlap between him joining Intel's board in 2022 and him stepping down at Cadence in 2023. He became CEO of Intel on March 12th of this year. So he hasn't been CEO of Intel while being on Cadence, but there was a year there where he was on both boards.
Is that typical? Is that in and of itself?
I don't know
issue?
That's really not what's at issue there, but it's just, for the timeline.
So just understanding where he was and what interests he might have had in one company. Okay, my bad.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
However, it is good to know that he was out of Cadence by 2023.
Okay.
He stopped being CEO in 2021. Remember that date?
Mm-hmm.
And he left Cadence Design in 2023. And that's all notable because on July 28th this year, Cadence pleaded guilty. Okay, this is not a he said, she said. They pleaded guilty to violating U.S. export controls. Here's what they pleaded guilty to. Their employees sold semiconductor design tools to an entity that was known as CSCC in Cadence's books, but was actually an alias for China's National University of Defense Technology, or NUDT, which is operated by the Chinese military. Okay?
Okay. Not good.
Now, from NUDT going on the U.S. entity list in February 2015 until April 2021, while Tan was still CEO, there were employees at Cadence selling things to that company. That university was added to the U.S. entity list, quote, due to its use of U.S. origin components to produce supercomputers believed to support nuclear explosive simulation and military simulation activities.
Okay.
So what they're concerned with is we don't want to make it easier for them to explore nuclear bombs, basically. Yeah. However, the U.S. Department of Justice statement on the guilty plea says that, and I'm going to quote from this again, according to Cadence's admissions and court documents, employees of Cadence China did not disclose to and or concealed from other Cadence personnel, including Cadence's export compliance personnel, that exports to CSCC were in fact intended for delivery to NUDT and or the PRC military.
Okay, my bad. I actually can't parse that sentence in my head. So they did. So did they hide it or they not hide it? Yeah. As I guess in
employees did not disclose and concealed from the export compliance personnel at Cadence. That's
okay.
The key
So
part,
they did.
Right?
They did conceal it. Okay.
So there were employees in China saying, "Let's keep selling to NUDT. We'll call it CSCC, and we'll hide it from people so they don't know that's what that is."
Okay. So if reading that, it seems safe to assume that they were doing this not at their own their own will for their own benefit.
Rogue employees,
right? Rogue employees. So not as a strategic.
While Tan was CEO,
Okay.
But what the Justice Department is saying is we don't have any evidence that anyone, including Tan, knew anything about it. Okay. And that's why Cadence is pleading guilty. They're like, yeah, our employees did that. We see that. Yeah. We didn't know it at the time.
Okay, cool.
Now, there are other facts to consider besides the Cadence thing, now that we've got that figured out.
Okay.
Intel has also delayed plans to build new facilities in Ohio. That has led Ohio Senator Bernie Moreno to also call for Tan to resign. Wall Street Journal ran a story on Friday about tensions between Tan and the Intel board of directors. The board has publicly supported Tan in the face of the allegations, but, there could be some behind-the-scenes stuff. So could the real thing that angers the president be that Intel's dragging its heels on building these new plants, while other tech companies are promising to increase investments, and maybe Intel's board helping knife them in the back, right?
Mm-hmm.
No.
Yeah. No? Okay.
Here's why that doesn't quite wash. Although I shouldn't say no flat out, but Intel board chairman Frank Yeary drew up plans earlier this year before Tan took over as CEO for Intel to exit the foundry business altogether. That's the business that makes the chips, and spin it out as a separate business unit with stakes sold to others. Now, some of those stakes were going to be sold to NVIDIA and Amazon, which are American companies, but they were talking about TSMC possibly buying a stake too. That's a Taiwanese company. And Tan has argued that Intel should keep its foundry business because it's essential, in his opinion, not only to Intel, but also the security of Intel's supply chains. Tan has been saying, no, don't sell the foundry business. We need to keep that, and we need to keep it under our control and in the United States. Now, the Journal says Yeary was among the board members who pushed back investments in U.S. foundries until 2026. So it's Yeary that is the one that's delaying the funding of those Ohio factories, or at least him and other board members. And the Journal also says Intel wanted to buy an AI company that would put it closer to NVIDIA and AMD in parity in chip making for the AI, but the board also delayed that as well. Tan also had recent meetings with U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick that seemed to be going well. Those indicated that the government would support Intel if it landed bigger customers like Apple. So it doesn't feel like Tan would be the person you would blame for the foundry stuff.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like Tan is going to get knifed by the board if the board is the one doing that stuff, and the board is publicly supporting him. So let me submit to you, Wen Cui Dao, one last suspect. The Journal also notes that Intel's previous CEO, Pat Gelsinger, the guy who had to step down, had a friendly relationship with U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance, and still has a friendly relationship with U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance. And Tan resigned from the Intel board in August 2024 temporarily in a dispute over how Gelsinger was running the business. So maybe those two don't like each other, and maybe Gelsinger's whispering in somebody's ear like, hey, you know what, this guy with this Chinese stuff, I don't know, you might want to look into that.
Oh my gosh. Okay. That's a lot.
It is a lot.
But I mean, I think I agree, especially the second point is interesting just because I think it's easy to point, especially with the T where the tariff word going around all day and kind of like the maneuvering going on. It would be easy to, I guess, assume that a lot of this does have to do with investment in American foundries, which I suppose is like a different argument and you know, has some merit somewhere for sure. So that's really interesting that it almost seems like Tan wouldn't be the person that you'd want to attack from if that was your goal. So it really seems like something else. And I don't, the thing with Cadence Design Systems does seem, you know, legitimately serious and a concern. Like if we're on the premise that, yeah, we need to be very, you know, careful about, I mean, yes, we do, in fact, have to be very careful about American technology getting into hands for nefarious purposes. Like that seems like a given. It just, it's a lot to untangle. But it doesn't, I guess to give, like, it doesn't seem that the delay in American investment would be a legitimate reason to do this. If anything, like the first one for security purposes, I guess that then we're into like who knew what at what time and how culpable is an individual executive, and how, like, I guess what are the standards for behavior in that case when something like that does happen, especially something that is like, let's fairly enough, very, very serious, or is it something more along the lines of almost individual politicking? And I don't, wow, that's a lot.
And the other thing is, I doubt the president really expects him to resign, but he's going to get something out of him.
Yeah, it really feels like a pressure, like a pressure move, because as I understand from the statement given, it was very vague, and it was very vague. Like it was like a very vague statement.
It was one of those like, you know, I'm mad and I'm going to say a thing.
Yes,
and. So putting all those pieces together, here's my best guess.
Okay.
This is just a guess.
Okay.
I don't know anything. The combination of Intel dragging its feet on the factories when everybody else is announcing big investments irritates. Frank Yeary wouldn't be the person to whisper in anybody's ear, go after Tan, because Yeary is actually the one dragging his heels on the foundries.
Right.
And if Tan gets leverage to be like, hey, the president wants this, we got to increase our investments, then Yeary loses. But Gelsinger could be the guy who's like, I want to get my old job back, or I have a friend who could take this job. Let me see if I can bring him down. It doesn't seem like Gelsinger to do that, though. That's the one part I get hung up on, is that just doesn't quite fit the pattern. But it wouldn't be Yeary. Or maybe there's some other person in this equation that we're missing. But somebody could definitely say, like, hey, look at all this stuff with Cadence. Look at all this stuff with Walden. And then look at the fact that Intel's not building factories. What's up with that guy? And get the president's ire raised about that. That's kind of as much as we know. Yeah.
I mean, would the purpose of this be is it more of on a small scale, hey, is it a personal profit thing, as in, yeah, someone wants the job, or is just not happy with Lip-Bhutan being there? Or is it more of a broader, hey, like, we want to, for whatever our motives are, again, keep pushing for American investment, and let's get everybody on board to kind of contribute to a larger kind of movement, like a larger plan that we have. So it's
and that, who knows, it could be competitors that want to keep Intel down, although Intel's pretty down right now. So it seems mean.
That's it all just seems like pieces, just moving pieces on a board back and forth and seeing if someone falls down or someone, moves forward as like, that's just me. That's just my very normal person, who funnily enough actually used Cadence design software in school for semiconductor study. That's just weird. But
at least we have a better understanding of the pieces on the board, and it hopefully people have less of a, like, what is this about? Like, you can kind of see why, possibly.
Yeah, and that maybe it's not just a person yelling at windmills solely, that there is some maneuvering going on here that might be worth definitely is worth paying attention to, or understanding it in a little more nuanced way than just who's the next person on the chopping block.
Yeah, it's not just yelling at a cloud.
Well, that actually was really helpful to me. I really appreciate that, because it was like, I think especially since we have so many stories like this, you get a little bit overwhelmed on what's actually going on. So I know that even as a co-host, the show has helped me better understand. So I appreciate that.
Thanks, man. That's good to know.
All right. Well, that's the mission of DTNS, and DTNS is made possible by you, the listener. We want to take time on this Friday to thank John Atwood, Pat, and Mike Cortez.
Yay!
Picture this. You're in the garage, hands covered in grease, just finished up tuning your engine with a part you found on eBay, and you realize, you know what? I could also use new brakes. So where do you go next? Back to eBay. You can find anything there. It's unreal. Wipers, headlights, even cold air intakes. It's all there. And you've got eBay Guaranteed Fit. You order a part, and if it doesn't fit, send it back. Simple as that. Look, DIY fixes can be major. Doesn't matter if it's just maintenance or a major mod. You got it, especially when things are guaranteed to fit. So when you dive into your next car project, start with eBay. All the parts you need at prices you'll love. Guaranteed to fit every time. eBay. Things people love.
In business, they say you can have better, cheaper, or faster, but you only get to pick two. What if you could have all three? You can with Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. OCI is the blazing fast hyperscaler for your infrastructure, database, application development, and AI needs, where you can run any workload for less. Compared with other clouds, OCI costs up to 50% less for compute, 70% less for storage, and 80% less for networking. Try OCI for free at oracle.com/dailytech. oracle.com/dailytech. Tired of your car insurance rate going up even with a clean driving record? You're not alone. That's why there's Jerry, your proactive insurance assistant. Jerry compares rates side by side from over 50 top insurers and helps you switch with ease. Jerry even tracks market rates and alerts you when it's best to shop. No spam calls, no hidden fees. Drivers who save with Jerry could save over $1,300 a year. Switch with confidence, download the Jerry app, or visit jerry.ai/ACAST today.
Hi, this is Joe from Vanta. In today's digital world, compliance regulations are changing constantly, and earning customer trust has never mattered more. Vanta helps companies get compliant fast and stay secure with the most advanced AI, automation, and continuous monitoring out there. So whether you're a startup going for your first SOC 2 or ISO 27001, or a growing enterprise managing vendor risk, Vanta makes it quick, easy, and scalable. And I'm not just saying that because I work here. Get started at Vanta.com.
Did you know adults 60 plus lose more than $60 billion each year to financial exploitation? Greenlight's new Family Shield plan empowers you to monitor your accounts for suspicious activity, protect yourself with up to $1 million identity theft coverage, and reassure loved ones that you're safe with location sharing and place alerts. Get peace of mind today at greenlight.com/protect. That's greenlight.com/protect.
All right, there is more we need to know today. Let's get to the briefs.
All right, 9 to 5 Mac reports that Apple told it that ChatGPT integration with Apple Intelligence will use GPT-5 with iOS 26, iPad OS 26, and Mac OS Tahoe 26. Those are supposed to arrive for all users next month. No details on when they might show up in the betas of those operating systems.
Yeah, I'm going to keep my eye out for that. But it makes sense. I would expect that to happen, so it's good to know it will. OpenVibe is an app that I use on Android and iOS that lets you follow and post to multiple social networks at once, including Blue Sky, Threads, Mastodon, and Nostr. And starting now, you can also add RSS feeds. So your favorite feeds will show up either in the combined timeline if you want, or next to posts from those other platforms in a dedicated RSS feed. If you're like, I don't want them mixed, I want to see them separately. Or you can create a custom feed where you mix and match. You can add them one by one or even import an OPML file from another newsreader.
I actually did use OpenVibe for a minute when I was kind of hot on Mastodon. I might have to open that back up. That's cool.
When I know I want to post to multiple places at once, OpenVibe is the first place I go. And I like browsing through because it gives me everything at once.
Yeah, and I think it's a good option if you're not someone who really needs like a paid service like Buffer or something like that. You just want it as like a normal person. Bunny ears, but normal person. Well, the Google Finance web app is getting a redesign that includes a chatbot that can answer finance questions. There are also chart redesigns, a live news feed, and the addition of broader market data, including cryptocurrencies. If you don't like the new design, a toggle will be available to revert back.
Yeah, which a lot of people want to revert back from things. So that's a good choice. Multiple users of Gemini have reported the chatbot giving responses that would be given by someone with low self-esteem, like, I am a fool. I have made so many mistakes that I can no longer be trusted, is actually one of the less dramatic examples that you can read. Google's product lead for AI Studio, Logan Kilpatrick, called it, quote, an annoying infinite looping bug, and that the company is fixing it.
Sorry. I'm just kind of feeling bad. Kind of bad for the AI a little bit. Okay. All right. Leaker Evan Blass has done it again. He has obtained marketing material that looks like what Google has prepared for the upcoming Pixel Watch 4 with Gemini. The tagline is precision crafted, performance ready. The new charger is officially called the Quick Charge Dock and is 25% faster than before.
Ooh, we'll see that soon. Thanks to Motang for tipping us off to this one in our subreddit. Germany's Einhaus Group was targeted by ransomware in March 2023, paid a fee of about $230,000 to the group to get its data back. However, the interruption to the service during the lockout was so bad that the company decided to go from 100 plus employees to 8 and has now entered insolvency proceedings, which is the last step before liquidation.
All right. And YouTube channel TechIt decided to literally test Samsung's Galaxy Z Fold 7, folding and unfolding it 200,000 times. Samsung said it should survive up to 500,000. The days-long live stream showed the phone rebooting every 6 to 10,000 folds. And at 46,000, it started to creak. At 75,000, a black liquid leaked from the hinge. And at 175,000, the speaker stopped working. However, after 200,000, the folding mechanism was smooth and it could still hold its position at any angle. So there's your silver lining.
Yeah, I like what the TechIt folks were saying is this shows that, factory tests aren't the entire description of the lifetime, right? Like stuff like the speaker stopping working and software rebooting. He's like, those are things that won't show up if it says, can fold and unfold 500,000 times without breaking, but there are other implications to this. And that was interesting to see.
Yeah, I like that because if you imagine like the chair demo in IKEA, it's a very it's the hydraulic, like showing you how many like sit downs a chair can take. That's a very like artificial. Even though it's impressive, still it's an artificial thing. When people do things, when people open and close a phone, it's not going to be a very consistent, nicely, evenly, with an even amount of force. It's going to be like a person uses it. So makes a lot of sense.
A couple of interesting cryptocurrency stories. The U.S. president directed the U.S. Secretary of Labor to review guidance on what can be included in 401k retirement plans to pave the way for a wider selection of assets, particularly cryptocurrencies. Meanwhile, Chinese policymakers are telling local brokers in the mainland and Hong Kong to stop publishing research or holding seminars about stablecoins. Stablecoins are the ones that have to be tied to an asset. So usually it's a US dollar and one coin equals $1. Regulators in China are concerned about their use in fraud, which possible because, they're less traceable, less centralized. Also probably concerned about their use in making it easier to rely on the dollar as an international currency, would be my guess.
All right. Well, Project Chrysalis won first place in the Project Hyperion design competition, where teams design hypothetical multi-generational ships for interstellar travel. Chrysalis would contain 2,400 people and their descendants on a 400-year trip to land on the planet Proxima Centauri b. People planning to join the journey must live for 70 to 80 years in Antarctica, meaning you won't go, but your children will. And the 36-mile-long ship includes layers with communal spaces, farms, gardens, homes, warehouses, and other shared facilities, each powered by nuclear fusion reactors.
This is one of those projects where you're not going to build it tomorrow, but you need these kinds of designs to understand what it would take. So that's pretty cool. And the idea, the planning that would be involved of like, and would it even be fair to be like, okay, we're going to Antarctica because we want our children to get on this ship? Like, what if the children are like, hey, we haven't left yet. I'm out.
I'm still here. Yeah. So can I stay here with the penguins? Also,
or, go back to Hawaii, which I've never seen.
I'm still the 36-mile-long ship. So I know. So this actually obviously is a problem. And like, how would you launch a 36-mile-long ship? You
got to build it in orbit, right? There's no way to launch it, right?
That's fair. Oh, wow. Okay.
I sent this one to Dr. Nikki, so we'll see if we can do a deeper dive on this a little later on, because I'm fascinated with this one as well.
I love it.
One last quick note. South Korea has delayed a decision Friday on Google's request to export map data. If you've ever been to South Korea, and I like going there, so I've been there a few times, you have to use Naver Maps because Google Maps just are limited in what they can do by the government. Naver is approved. This is all because they're technically still at war with North Korea. And Google had requested, like, come on, let us use the map data. And they were about to get it. And then South Korea held it up. And it seems to be held up as a bargaining chip in the country's negotiation with the U.S. over tariffs.
That is fascinating. I kind of just assumed that Google Maps data was so ubiquitous, but that, as you explained, it makes so much sense.
Yeah. Wow. You can only navigate by train. Like you can use it to map your train trips, but no driving data. Yeah, there's a lot of other data that's limited. So you end up using Naver Maps, which is good, I have to say, but not as foreign friendly, perhaps.
Okay.
Well, folks, if you are looking for a gift for your coworker or colleague, we should mention we've got a store, dailytechnewsshow.com/store. Pick up a mug. It has the DTNS logo right on it. There's a mouse pad we've got. It's got the DTNS logo on it. Lots of cool stuff in there. Go check it out. They're great gifts and great ways to support the show. dailytechnewsshow.com/store.
Banking with Capital One helps you keep more money in your wallet with no fees or minimums on checking accounts and no overdraft fees. Just ask the Capital One bank guy. It's pretty much all he talks about, in a good way. He'd also tell you that this podcast is his favorite podcast, too. Ah, really? Thanks, Capital One bank guy. What's in your wallet? Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com/bank. Capital One N.A. member FDIC.
Hi, this is Joe from Vanta. In today's digital world, compliance regulations are changing constantly, and earning customer trust has never mattered more. Vanta helps companies get compliant fast and stay secure with the most advanced AI, automation, and continuous monitoring out there. So whether you're a startup going for your first SOC 2 or ISO 27001, or a growing enterprise managing vendor risk, Vanta makes it quick, easy, and scalable. And I'm not just saying that because I work here. Get started at Vanta.com.
We end every episode of DTNS with some shared wisdom. Today, Larry has some thoughts on AI and coding.
Yeah. So he wrote, one thing I've noticed is that some of the coders on the show sound a bit resistant when it comes to discussions about AI and coding. I say this with a lot of empathy because it reminds me of something I experienced firsthand. Years ago, I was a trader at the Chicago Board of Trade and the Mercantile Exchange right when electronic trading was starting to take over. The floor traders, myself included, were all adamant that electronic trading would never work. It couldn't possibly do what we did. Fast forward to now, there are almost no physical trading floors left. Everything's digital. The people who adapted and learned how to trade electronically kept going while others got left behind. I think we're seeing a similar shift now with AI and coding. The coders who evolve, who learn to prompt well and use AI as a tool are going to have a big advantage. And I imagine that's what's making some people nervous. It's not that they don't see the potential, it's that they do. Anyway, just wanted to share that perspective. I still love the show. Everyone you have on is super knowledgeable. It's fun to listen to such high-level discussions from people who really know their stuff. I just couldn't help but notice the parallel with my past. Thanks for everything you do, Larry.
Okay, well, a couple of things. Larry, that's actually really good, interesting historical context. My first job out of college, or actually in college, was with NASDAQ, which is like the first solely electronic stock market. So that's a really interesting, I think I would understand that, the switch over from like physical trading floors with people yelling at each other to electronic was a big shift. But I didn't realize that people kind of gave the same argument that we hear today that, oh, the computer can't do what I do. That is actually really cool context. And sorry. So I don't disagree. And I think it's a really good point, Tom, to bring up that, and it's a good, I think, perspective setting that, and we've talked about this before, that this is a very cyclical thing with tech, right? Where a new advancement comes and some people are reticent to adopt it, either out of maybe being afraid that it's not as good as it says it is, or maybe an innate fear about what it means for them personally. So yeah, I absolutely don't disagree. And I think you are right that it's not going away. It is going to be a tool. And I think that anyone who totally dismisses it out of hand is doing themselves a disservice on many levels. If anything else, just to understand, to better understand the status of the tool, what it can actually do, and to take advantage of good use cases, and to, if anything else, kind of help us find the best niche for it. And that's, I actually literally talked about this at a conference lately when someone asked my opinion about adoption, is that I think it's actually really interesting because a big part of what engineering is problem solving, but also finding the right solution to the right problem. And I think we should be thinking about the current generation and the current kind of just tsunami of AI tools in that sense, is like so there's a solution here and we need to find the right problem. My reticence is, I try to temper it very much. And again, you giving this example is again just a lesson to me, just to make sure that I keep my eyes open. My reticence right now is that I worry that a lot of that this kind of seems like very on theme. I worry that AI is going to, let's say attack is not the right word, but I worry that AI is going to is kind of like, I'm trying to think of the right word, but
Is it undermine?
Undermine. Thank you. Yeah, undermine. I was going to make a digging motion, but undermine engineering, and not because it's going to replace engineers per se, or that our job is going to change, but that I worry right now is that the speed that we're going at, and specifically the type of tool and its efficiency right now, is going to undermine the core parts of what I think of as engineering, which doesn't necessarily have to be coding or doing things by hand, but that's critical thinking and problem solving. Mm-hmm. And I so worry that because of the fast adoption, and because the AI is not perfect, and that while vibe coding is a great thing, I have yet to see it help with actual production levels. I think we talked on this show last week about Replit and things like that, where it's not quite ready for that level. And so what I think is and this is not an unfamiliar story, where an innovation happens people push for it to be adopted. And then what happens is that there's going to be some casualties in like the adoption of what is eventually going to be the tools, the valid parts of this, right? The actual solution that we're looking to for our current problems. And my concern is that, especially with this generation of AI and the way that it functions, that we're starting to turn our brains off. And so that is undermining engineering in my opinion, is that the critical thinking and problem solving. And I'm actually not worried too much about my job. Like, I think if you have the experience and you have those skills, absolutely 100% that AI, machine learning assistants will just help you fly, will help you do your job faster. Because there's a lot of stupid stuff I have to do that's very rote and not like what I should, like, is not the best use of my time every day, and it will make that better. What I'm really concerned about is, especially for people coming out now that don't have the experience, that don't have that need more time, or that can sharpen their critical thinking and problem solving skills, especially like for like very specific jobs, very specific domains. They're not going to get that chance just because already we're seeing companies say like, hey, well, even if you were like, interview applicants need to show that they use AI, and they're even specifying like some percentage of the time. Mm-hmm. And so my concern is that, yes, we will be using these things. And we have been using these things for many years. Like we've used lots of like code generation tools for many years now. But the way that it works now, and the way that, the current interaction with it, with prompts and kind of be more natural language, it's a good thing. But I think also we don't have the infrastructure and education in place to transfer people now from the reality of now to the future, where everybody will not be necessarily coding and writing stuff out, but being able to interact and be able to direct an AI to do, the rote stuff, the boring stuff, and actually let the person do the high level critical thinking and problem solving while letting the AI do the grunt work. My concern is like, we just don't have a good transition to that. And so what's happening right now, people are turning their brains off, which is our whole job, in my opinion. So that's what I'm worried about. But yeah.
I have two thoughts to that, and we'll just go a little longer today.
Yeah, my bad. I'm sorry. I told Tom, I was like, I'm so worried.
This is too good of a conversation.
Okay.
I think one, there's often a confusion between I don't like the tools as they are now versus I don't think they have potential. And I think when I hear you talk about it, you clearly say like, when I use these tools, I run into X problem, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's something where it's like, don't confuse criticism of now with criticism of the future. But to your second point, which is like, will it undermine? I think your and others' concern about that is usually what stops that from being a problem, right? If you weren't concerned, then it could undermine that sort of thing, because nobody would bother paying attention to it. But I think what usually happens is, because you're concerned, you make sure like, okay, but we've got to teach people this part of it. We've got to teach people the critical thinking, and that usually ends up happening. And calculators don't cause everyone to be dumb about math. We decide to emphasize the importance of learning the concepts, and hopefully that's what happens this time around.
I hope so. I do hope, and I appreciate that. And I have run into several young folks who are resisting the pressure to adopt it and taking it upon themselves to get, like, I say young person, I feel like such an old person saying that, but like people who are in the situation are making moves to ready themselves. I just want to make sure that that's like a thing that a lot of people know that they have options for, and that you don't have to feel the pressure to just prompt and not and maybe sacrifice some of the experience and some of the, like, the mistakes and trial and error that you need. But it is a really good reminder. And I really appreciate it, Larry, because I think sometimes it's easy to get outraged or scared and kind of lose sight of the bigger picture. And so I really appreciate, like, it does take folks like Larry and other friends of mine who have been like, hey, like, slow down here. Mm-hmm. Let's not get so outraged. And again, critical think about the solutions and the problems. So I really appreciate it, Larry.
Yeah. Thank you, Larry. Appreciate that.
All right. Well, what are you thinking about? Do you have some insight into a story? Please share it with us. feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com.
Yeah. Big thanks to Larry for contributing to today's show. Thank you for being along for the Daily Tech News Show. You can keep us in business by becoming a patron. If you haven't checked it out, we got lots of cool stuff over there. Check it out. Patreon.com/DTNS. We'll talk to you soon. This week's episodes of Daily Tech News Show Briefing were created by the following people. Host, producer, and writer Tom Merritt. Host and writer Jason Howell. Co-host Rob Dunwood. Co-host Jen Cutter. Co-host Wen Tui Dao. Producer Anthony Lemos. Producer Roger Chang. Editor Hammond Chamberlain. Editor Victor Bognot. Science correspondent Dr. Nikki Ackermans. Social media producer and moderator Zoe Detterding. Our mods, Beatmaster, W. Scottus1, BioCow, Captain Kipper, Steve Guadarrama, Paul Reese, Matthew J. Stevens, a.k.a. Gadget Virtuoso, and J.D. Galloway. Mod and video hosting by Dan Christensen. Music provided by Martin Bell and Dan Luters. Art by Len Peralta. Acast ad support from Tatiana Matias. Patreon support from Bobby Wagner. Our guests this week included Ryan Whitwam and Andy Beach. And thanks to all the patrons who make the show possible.
This show is part of the Frog Pants Network. Get more at frogpants.com.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
Any pickups, Hammond? Nice.
Hi, this is Joe from Vanta. In today's digital world, compliance regulations are changing constantly, and earning customer trust has never mattered more. Vanta helps companies get compliant fast and stay secure with the most advanced AI, automation, and continuous monitoring out there. So whether you're a startup going for your first SOC 2 or ISO 27001, or a growing enterprise managing vendor risk, Vanta makes it quick, easy, and scalable. And I'm not just saying that because I work here. Get started at Vanta.com.
Banking with Capital One helps you keep more money in your wallet with no fees or minimums on checking accounts and no overdraft fees. Just ask the Capital One bank guy. It's pretty much all he talks about, in a good way. He'd also tell you that this podcast is his favorite podcast, too. Ah, really? Thanks, Capital One bank guy. What's in your wallet? Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com/bank. Capital One N.A. member FDIC.